Once upon a time, two friends joined forces to bring you the best in horror entertainment. Brian from the north, Tim from the south, each bringing their own unique perspective to the horror community. Movie reviews, Blu-ray releases, beer pairings, games, and more. Welcome to your new home for horror. This is Civil Gore.
Hey there, everybody. Welcome to episode 135 of the Civil Gore podcast. I'm your host, Tim.
And this is Brian. And we're very excited on this show because we are featuring an interview which we teased a little bit without giving much away because we were so superstitious and so excited for it. Well, it's on this show. You'll be very excited. We were talking to the legendary gamer, or a gaming legend, as I should say, BECCA SCOTT. You probably saw her on various projects she does on YouTube, Game to Game, a lot of Geek and Sundry projects. She had her podcast, Victory Points. So there's a lot of cool stuff that she's done. So if you're even a remote bit of a gamer, you know that name. And we are super excited that she came on to chat with us. And we'll have that interview a little bit later. Before, I guess, our first chat, we should talk about a little bit of sad news. I thought we were out of this whole sad news thing, but it looks like we're on this streak again, Tim.
Yeah, I know, unfortunately. Yes, we are sad to hear the passing of Max von Sydow, who you guys probably know best as the priest from The Exorcist, but he has 167 actor credits on IMDb. He is truly a legend.
Yeah.
Also known famously for his roles in the Star Wars films, in The Seventh Seal, Ming the Merciless, and Flash Gordon. I mean, this guy was everywhere. Just a legendary screen actor. Made it to his 90s. Still very, very sad to hear his passing, because he just seemed like a legend, sort of like in the vein of a Christopher Lee, just one of those legendary, iconic screen figures.
Yeah, and he kept kind of like a very low profile in the last couple of years. You know, he just keeps appearing and stuff, and, you know, without much of a, like, he just, like, when he was in Star Wars, I'm like, Max von Sydow, he's going to be in Force Awakens? That's awesome, you know, and it's just, and it's so sad to hear that he can no longer be, entertain us, but we will have all his old classic films, and as Tim mentioned, we have over 150 to choose from, so, which is good.
Yeah, fantastic actor, and he will definitely be missed. So, Brian, before we get to our interview with BECCA, let's get right to our first chop. All right, so, Brian, I stumbled across this podcast, and I got to it through another podcast I listened to. I'll give you several podcast recommendations here. There's a podcast I listened to called Monster Talk. I've probably mentioned it on the show before. And it's a skeptic's guide to cryptozoology, basically. And it's not all cryptozoology. They do ghosts and UFOs and stuff like that too, but they're definitely from a skeptical standpoint. But they genuinely love this stuff. I mean, they absolutely love it. The host, and I'll have to look up his name, but he is a huge fan of Bigfoot and Loch Ness Monster and stuff. So even though this is a skeptical podcast, they don't treat the subjects with derision. They don't make fun of it. They're really, really passionate about the whole field of monsters and cryptozoology and the paranormal and stuff. They just look at it from more a scientific point of view. Well, he announced this new podcast that he's doing called In Research Of. And what they do is they go through every episode of In Search Of, which, if you guys don't remember, was a show back in the 70s hosted by Leonard Nimoy.
Yes, of course.
And it covered all kinds of subjects: Bigfoot, Loch Ness Monster, UFOs, ghosts, killer bees, ancient civilizations, alien civilizations, everything you could think of. I remember it was one of the first shows that got me hooked on the paranormal and cryptozoology and stuff like that. It's a favorite show of many, many people that do these kind of podcasts. And so what they did is they went back, and all of the In Search Of episodes, by the way, are available on YouTube. So if you go out there and look for them, they actually are officially broadcast on YouTube by In Search Of. And you can watch these, and I've been going back and watching them episode by episode. And then the In Research Of podcast goes through each episode and talks about the skeptical interpretation of that episode, or what they got wrong, what they left out, what they maybe got right. They're actually really fair and balanced in terms of talking about, you know, where they actually did present a balanced viewpoint in the show. And they talk about, the cheesy 70s music. It's very, very entertaining. If you love In Search Of, you're also going to love the In Research Of podcast because, like I said, they're going through episode by episode for however many 200 plus episodes that Leonard Nimoy did. So if you're at all interested in that kind of stuff like I was from a young tyke, I think you'll really enjoy it.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I definitely loved that. Of course, the famous one that everyone remembers is that Bigfoot one. I still remember it. I don't.
Yeah,
remember
I just watched that one
them.
today, actually.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, it was fantastic. I mean, the video quality is not the greatest, of course, because it's on YouTube and they're just kind of ripping it off, probably old VHS, but it's a lot of fun.
Nice.
The other thing I watched today was The Love Witch, and this is one Kim and Ket did on a few episodes back, and I really wanted to see it because the cover really intrigued me. It has this cover of like this brunette woman that looks kind of 70s, and I was just like, The Love Witch? What is this, a horror movie? I don't understand this. And I will have to say, this is a fascinating movie. It is filmed in the style of an early 70s Italian horror movie. Now, I know we've had these throwback 80s horror films that were trying to replicate the look of the 80s VHS era. This is the first one I've seen that tries to replicate the look of those old 70s giallo films. And it was produced in 2016. And what's fascinating about it is they don't necessarily try to hide the fact that it's not filmed in the 70s. The major characters are all in 70s wardrobes, and the cars they drive, at least for the major characters, are 70s. But they will leave like modern cars in the background in parking lots. And there's one point where a woman has a cell phone. And it's so odd. It's almost like what they did with It Follows, where there was all these anachronisms sprinkled throughout. It's kind of like that, but anything that's the focus of the story is filmed in like the 70s style. And let me tell you, the colors and the vibrant cinematography of this movie is outstanding. I mean, they went for those like bold reds. Like there's one point where she goes into this tea room to have dinner with a friend, and everything's pink. It's just garish pink everywhere you look, and it's like one of those set pieces you would only see in one of these old 70s movies. It's really, really fascinating. The story is about this woman that is a love witch. She creates potions and stuff trying to find the perfect man. And so it kind of defies description. I think if you like those old 70s movies, you're really, really going to like this one. I love the way they tried to emulate it and how they did such a good job. If you took certain screenshots out of this or even small clips and didn't know any better, you would swear this was filmed in the 70s. It's really, really fascinating.
Oh, cool. I got to check that. Yeah, I'm a little behind in my Kim and Ket also, so I need to, I have to watch both these, I guess. I got to listen to their episode and then watch this.
Yeah, I think it's on Shudder and Prime, so you have plenty of opportunities.
Yeah, I think it's been on Shudder for a while, too, and it's been in my queue, so I just haven't got around to it.
Next up is The Empty House. This was a short film that was sent to us by some friends of the show.
Yes, Adam and Jeremy. They were they directed it, and they sent us an email asking us to check it out, and they were actually listeners to the podcast. And this actually is a great short film. It's up for one of the Rondo Awards, which we really need to like. We got to share the site on social media again to make sure everyone goes to this, because this is an impressive award lineup. I mean, they have a lot of categories and a lot of nominees for it. So it's such a cool themed award. It's a very, very like detailed. It's the best way to describe this. They have like best DVD feature. It's like stuff you wouldn't think to put in an award show. So it's really cool. But nevertheless, this one was up for best short, one of the best short film category. And so they had us check it out, and it's available on Prime, so you can see it really easily. Just search The Empty House, and it's really, really cool. It's the production value on this is really high. It's really well done, and it's got this really like the performances are great in it. First of all. And what I think is so good is they do a great job. I mean, obviously, I don't want to give away details of this. It's 14 minutes. I will give you that detail. But what's so great is I think they keep this ominous tone going throughout the entire film, where you're really not sure what's going on, but you have this kind of sense of unease the entire time.
Yeah, I really like the score is
Yeah.
fantastic, and even the title sequence and everything just looks really. Again, we use the term artsy, which I think sounds these days sounds derogatory, but I mean this in the best sense of the word. This short film looks like one of those really higher level horror films, like you see, like from The Witch and Hereditary and The Lighthouse. Those films that are kind of take horror movies a step above. That's what this one kind of takes short films a step above. It has that kind of look and feel to it. So really, really well done. I actually really enjoyed it.
Yeah. So guys, check that out. Just look for it on Amazon Prime, and then I guess if you like it, which I know you will, give it a nomination for the Rondo Awards. Well, I guess it's already nominated. Give it a vote for the Rondo Awards.
Yeah, definitely.
So yeah, Adam and Jeremy, thanks a lot, because that was really cool. I'm glad, because sometimes you can't catch everything that's out there, so it's nice when someone gives us an alert to something really cool that we might have missed.
Yeah, and anyone else out there, and Adam and Jeremy, if you have anything else that you want to promote, definitely let us know or shoot us an email, and we will be glad to check it out and put it on the show. We love getting content from listeners and others that we meet on Twitter and Facebook and that kind of thing to check out and review on the show.
Yes.
All right, so let's get to our interview with the fabulous and amazing BECCA SCOTT. I've been a huge fan of hers ever since I started watching Game the Game, which is like my go-to when it comes to learning how to play a board game, because she does such a fantastic job of explaining the rules, and their playthroughs are just hilarious.
Yeah, she even dresses as a shark in the Jaws one, which is a classic episode if you have not seen that yet.
Yeah, that one's fantastic. So she was as wonderful in the interview as she is on her YouTube channel. It's just a fantastic interviewee. And without further ado, this is our interview with BECCA SCOTT.
Okay, so we have a very special guest tonight with us, and we couldn't be more excited as we are both huge fans. She's a host, actress, producer, and gaming legend. So let's give a warm welcome to the show to the amazing and talented BECCA SCOTT.
Oh my God, Tim and Brian, thank you so much for having me. Gaming legend. I like that.
You mean, wait, that's not your official name? I would surely think it is.
That's what people whisper when I walk in a room. They don't say it out loud.
Yeah, because I thought I might have heard it on one of your shows, like in the background. So I don't know. Maybe that's where I got it.
Yeah. Oh, legend.
Yes, well, we think so, at least. At least you know from here, we think you were a true gaming legend.
Well, I really appreciate that. All I do is play board games on the internet and hope that people watch, or not. I just get to play games, so it's fine either way.
Just very jealous.
That's awesome. All right, so BECCA, let's get right into it with the BECCA SCOTT origin story. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Oh my gosh. I'm from Kansas City. I've been living in LA 9 years, and I was doing a lot of work. My background is in acting. Gaming was just, of course, the hobby. And I was working on film sets, and then I got tied in with Geek and Sundry on a little production that never made it to light of day. It was a post-apocalyptic comedy that some friends and I were working on the pilot for, and Geek and Sundry found it. They found us. They co-produced it with us, and I was the assistant director and producer of that project. And then that's how I got my foot in the door at Geek and Sundry. They were starting their Twitch channel. I pitched to them that I would love to be talent on a board game show. I didn't even know what that meant yet. And then Ivan Van Norman and I did this show for several years called Game the Game that was on Twitch. And now that show is on YouTube, and I'm the solitary host of it. And it's been through many iterations. We've played so many games in the past 5 years, and now I'm branching out, doing my own things, working for Magic the Gathering Arena specifically, and doing their events as a floor reporter, interviewing players. And there's a whole wide world of gaming that I'm just trying to fill every moment with. So it's been a wild ride these past years.
Wow. How do you have time to come on our show now? You have so much on your plate. That's incredible.
Look, there's days when I get ready, and there's days where I could sit at the computer all day. And today was a sit at the computer all day. Also editing another podcast, which is yet to be released, launching a new podcast soon with a couple of friends. So just want to make that first episode very special, and definitely over editing it. And then I'm sure I'll cease editing of any kind as it goes on. But, you want the first one to be special.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, our first one was not special, even though Tim did a great job editing, but we forgot that we can edit on our first episode, so we are terrified to go back and ever listen to it.
I will never listen to it now.
It's like kids with a VCR that press stop and go.
Yeah.
One of those handheld tape recorders.
Oh my God. I don't think I have one somewhere buried. Literally one of those old school, like, Walkman type of things. Oh, wow.
Yeah, so Becca, were you into gaming before you get into like Game the Game and that kind of stuff? Were you always a board gamer?
I was always a hardcore competitive gamer, but I was unaware of the deep, deep, cavernous world of specialty hobby tabletop games. So I wasn't going to conventions or anything. I was just offering people to play a board game every night. But, probably Ticket to Ride and Catan were my go-tos. I played a couple things at friends' houses, but mostly Scrabble was the thing I was trying to get people to play every day. And so, every day is a new adventure when you find new games to explore, horror games in particular.
Yes, we have that definitely to ask you about shortly, because that's what kind of got me in.
Oh yeah, I've heard you've been just recently hooked.
I have, and it's funny. I didn't know how hooked you could get so fast. It got to the point where, so I was living vicariously through Tim's excitement of these games, and I said, well, that really sounds exciting. And it's not like I never played board games. I always did when I was a kid. And in fact, I was just telling Tim before we started, I was very close to being a full-on board gamer years ago, as I used to play this game, my friends and I used to play, called Stratomatic. It was a sports version of Dungeons & Dragons, so to speak, where it was
awesome.
Yeah, it really, and they still actually produce this game on Long Island. It's this small little company where they had all the major sports, and they would actually have the licensed players, and based off of their real life statistics, that's how their cards would be set up, and you'd literally roll the dice, and you'd play cards to if they stole bases. It was really in depth as before the video games could get so good. So that was our go-to.
That's amazing. What a cool game. I love hearing people's really deep cuts of a game they played as a child that no one's ever heard of. And then the best is when someone else in the room is like, me too, Strategum. What was it called?
Stratomatic. Now I don't feel so bad pronouncing it, because Tim always teases me because one of the games that I saw on the game was that I always butcher it. I'm gonna say it wrong again, Castles of Waterbury or something. What is that one, Tim? That's right.
Lords
okay.
of Waterdeep.
I butcher that every time,
Lords
as you
of
can
Waterdeep.
see. So it's so funny. So I have no problem. It kind of makes me feel better that you not everyone can remember every game name. So that was good.
I've never heard of that game before, so I don't feel bad. You should feel very ashamed of not knowing. Lords of Waterdeep, it's also a world, a realm of D&D, which I know less about. But
yeah, I refer to it as Gourds of Waterderp.
Gourds of Waterderp. There you go. That's it.
But what's funny, so it was so I guess I was always there, able to get into games. But when Horrified came out, I immediately, because Tim and I are a huge fan of Universal Monsters, so I couldn't wait to try this game. And immediately, I bought it, but I didn't get to try it until we were at Tim's house. And I got so into the games and so much into it, I started that's when I think I found Game the Game after that. I started watching that. And it was so funny because my wife was she's like, are you watching people play board games on your iPad right now? And I was like, yeah, it's the coolest thing. They literally play through the game and they tell you how to play it.
Man, she must think you're such a weirdo.
Well, she already did anyway, so that was pretty much this just solidified it. I think it was okay. But
yeah, trying to explain to family members what I do is I've just given up. I'm a YouTuber, I say.
No, but you're no, everyone knows you now, so you can you have that swagger at least, right? You can go on and say, well, look at me, I'm here.
At Gen Con, I got swagger. Everywhere else, I'm just doing some weird internet thing. That's amazing. Yeah, Horrified it's a fantastic game. It's a co-op game, which is usually not my favorite genre, but in general, because I'm the type of player that will take over, the quarterback player. So I like to play a game where I can make sure I don't usurp people's playtime. But Horrified is really, really great because, as you know, it's all about the classic movie monsters. I don't know if you've already talked to your listeners about this, but it really does hit those tropes, and you're just going around, you're trying to save the townspeople and keep the horror level from getting too high while stopping the monster from the Black Lagoon or whichever. That's Tim's favorite too. To play with. Oh yeah.
Yeah, he is the best. The creature. Yeah.
I knew I was saying that wrong as I said it, and I was like, of all the podcasts,
no,
it the monster from the Black Lagoon on.
It's okay. He's a monster
and
too.
It's funny
so
too because thanks to that Your Game the Game episode, I always refer to that little courier guy as Pip.
Pip.
Yeah.
Totally.
He's totally Pip.
So, Becca, what are some of your other favorite horror games? Do you have some in mind?
Oh, gosh. I mean, always. So, I'm going to have to say my all-time favorite game is Betrayal Legacy, and there's a really long playthrough series of Game the Game where we play through all of Betrayal Legacy. And for anyone who doesn't know, a legacy game is a game where you can kind of save your place and continue coming back to it. It's always changing and evolving, and Betrayal Legacy is especially good. So, it's based on Betrayal on the House on the Hill, which is a game from Avalon Hill that came out, I want to say, mid-2000s, and then they had an expansion in I think it came out 2012 originally, but it's just a little horror haunted house. You and your friends, it starts a little co-op, you're all just exploring the house with tiles. You get to, on your turn, move into a new room and flip a tile to create that room, and then at some point, when you've flipped enough rooms and discovered enough haunts, someone becomes the traitor and turns against everyone, and you all have to battle your friend, and they have to leave the room and read from a separate booklet that tells them what the bad guy is trying to do, and all of the heroes have to try and reach another goal to maybe defeat that monster or kill all their Satan spawn or whatever it may be. So that's a really fun one. Mansions of Madness 2nd Edition. This is from Fantasy Flight. This game started as also exploring a haunted house, but there was a dungeon master in the 1st edition, which didn't really work for that player. They were not having a good time. And so in the 2nd edition, there's an app, and the app is incredible. Brian knows all these games.
I know all of them. I'm like, you know what? Forget Tim. He's never mentioned these to me. I'm going to you directly now.
Well,
sorry, Tim.
I own all the content for Mansions of Madness. Thank
Incredible.
You very much. I love
Impressive.
that game. It is fantastic.
Now that's a lot of content to own. I just borrow friends' games because it's a big old box with a lot of expansions to it. Doesn't mess around.
And Tim makes me jealous because he's got that Big Trouble in Little China deluxe game with all the miniatures and everything.
Oh yeah.
That's a fantastic game. I love it.
Have you painted your minis, Tim?
I have painted my minis. Thank you very much. Although nice. I still have a backlog of about 200 because I got the stupid Street Masters Kickstarter, which had 200 some figures in it. So I've got a ways to go.
Uh-oh, you got your work cut out.
Yes, definitely.
There's so many horror games that are wonderful, though. Zombicide is a fun one. Although you are cooperative, you're sort of just killing zombies. They keep spawning all over, and together you take turns fighting them, and then they spawn more. Dead of Winter, similar kind of, you're fighting the zombies, but there may be a traitor amongst you. Who knows? You're trying to survive the winter.
That's like the Shining game that just came out. Did you get that one yet? I just got it, but I didn't get to play it yet.
Oh my goodness, I'm looking it up.
Yeah, Target has it, by the way, $24. It's pretty inexpensive, and it even comes with the game. The player token is is like the key to the room.
237. Yeah.
237. Thank you.
Yeah.
I was gonna say 232 for some reason, and that.
Brian, this is a horror podcast. You have to know your Shining trick.
I know.
You had one job, Brian.
I was in the Water Village or whatever before. I'm trying to get back into horror now.
Amazing. And I see it's put out by Prospero Hall. They design a ridiculous amount of games. They're sort of this just what is the word? I don't know. There's all this talent, and they design for so many publishers, and it's like they're behind all these games that you never even knew. It's like you pulled back the curtain, and it's just Prospero Hall, and I don't even know who works there. They have this collective name.
Yeah, they did Horrified. They did Jaws. They're doing the upcoming Back to the Future game.
I forgot
anything
about that.
with great IP.
Yes, pretty much anything with an IP they have a hand in. think they did Villainous as well.
Yep, that sounds right. Yes, they did. Talk about one of the best horror movies of all time.
Oh, yeah.
My favorite, personal favorite.
Yes. Yeah, and we actually saved that for episode 50. We did that movie because we wanted to make sure it was we picked a big one for that one. That was a pretty good one. We actually did a funny sketch with it too, which was Tim and I, our sketches, they come few and far between, but they're pretty
We think they're funny. We don't know if other people do. We just,
yeah.
Amazing. Is this a video sketch or audio?
All audio, but it's funny. Our
Amazing.
favorite one, I think, is the strangest one ever. We did a Carrie sketch from when we did Carrie, and it's just me and Tim basically portraying Carrie and Carrie's mom, and it's like horrendously poor impersonations, yet for some reason we can't get through it without cracking up. It's pretty funny.
I mean, that's the heart of true comedy. Is you take a girl about to murder her mother with a crucifix, and you turn it into laughs.
Well, we had it as she was going to do a podcast, basically. So we had we had some of the classic lines twisted in. It was actually pretty clever. Tim wrote it in you wrote it in 10 minutes too. It was great.
Yeah. Well, and it shows. So yeah.
Very impressive.
He's like, great. So we'll get. I got one question I definitely want to ask you here is, so for someone like me too, who's just kind of getting into gaming. I mean, I had an advantage because I had Tim, but let's say someone just really wants to get into gaming. What do you think? What would you start them with?
Oh, that's such a hard one because I really gauge what games to recommend off a person's personality, whether they're, more aggressive and I think they'd like a dudes on a map game like a Niche is a really fun area control one, or Court of the Dead I really like, and or it's somebody that maybe somebody's mom and I think they're gonna like a Pandemic, something that's co-op, something that where we're all working together, or Forbidden Desert or something like that. A personal favorite, if you're trying to get into heavy stuff, Cthulhu Wars is one that also falls into horror that I really, really love. But yeah, there's so many different varieties. I like to have someone tell me, name one game you like, and then I'll tell you 3 other games that I think you would also like based on that.
Well, that we can relate when people say, "Oh, really? You do a horror podcast? What's your favorite horror movies?" We're like, well,
where to start? Depends on the mood.
Speaking of Cthulhu Wars, can there ever be too many Cthulhu games?
They all scratch a different itch, There's Cthulhu Death May Die. It was really making its way up the Board Game Geek chart right now. And it's sort of described as a new zombicide, but you don't want to go insane. There are too many. But at the same time, you've got to find the best ones amongst them.
Yeah.
And you can't do that without throwing all the Cthulhu spaghetti at the wall. Cthulhu tentacles?
I joke that I own all the Cthulhu games. I don't know. I don't think I actually do, but I do own far too many. I did just buy Cthulhu Death May Die a few weeks ago. It's pretty good.
How big is your collection?
I'm over 100 right now.
Oh my god. So how much of your house does that take up? Is there one room where it's just all the walls?
No, I've actually managed to contain it to a single closet. But that's all that closet has in it is games.
That's incredible.
So, it still comes off fairly neat. When we get our new house, I think I'm going to actually build shelves so you can actually see them, because right now everything's behind closed doors. You don't get to show it off, really.
Oh, you got to display it. It's artwork.
Yeah. I could display my modest 10 that I have, but
oh, you'll get there real quick, Brian. Don't worry.
Yeah, I know.
Brian, yours is well curated, okay?
It is actually. It's all horror themed, except for one Star Wars game, and then the weird New Jersey game that our friend Steve Cohn gave me. But other than that, but I'm growing. I have some. I want to get that Wonder Woman game when this week, I think. So.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
good choice.
That one looks good.
Choice.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I have to get Waterdeep, right? Because I actually said it right, I think, that time. I need to get that, of course.
You sure did.
Right? I need to get that, right? That's a game I need to own, right?
It's amazing. I've played it mostly on my phone, if I'm being completely honest. But it's an excellent game and a very good app for it. And It's the quintessential worker placement, and that's a genre I really enjoy.
Yeah, there you go, Brian. Just try it on the app, and if you like it, then you can get the
That's true.
physical copy.
Well, I did see that Xbox Live actually has a couple of board games on there for, games with gold, and for free you can get, like, Pandemic was on there. I think Ticket to Ride was on there. So I was thinking of trying that too.
Ticket to Ride is the best app.
Oh,
Yeah,
I got to
that's
try
great.
that then.
And Pandemic's timely.
Yeah,
You
seriously.
need to learn that one very quickly.
Oh, God. Yeah. How long until we get the coronavirus horror films? Of course, there was Contagion
Yeah.
Yes.
several years ago, which I've been thinking about a lot recently.
Actually, if you want the best type of, well, I guess it's, obviously it's not really a zombie, that's not really a zombie film, but there's a genre is very close when it comes to that, because that's what Tim said. As soon as the coronavirus came out, he's pretty much, this is how the zombie apocalypse started. One you have to see if you have not seen it yet is called Train to Busan. It's my favorite zombie movie ever.
I've heard of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's South Korean.
Yes. So
Yes.
you have to see this one if you haven't seen, if you like zombie movies, because I think even if you don't like zombie movies, this may like turn you a little bit, because it's really well done.
Turn you? Is that a pun?
It should have been, and we're so pun heavy on this show, and I like completely
Oh my
missed it.
gosh.
I even have my sign, I prefer my puns intended, on my desk, and I still didn't even catch that one. See? Look at that. I'm off my game, so to speak. See, that was a pun. Okay. That was terrible, though. That was a bad one.
Hey, it was good at the moment. You're thinking fast. I didn't hate it.
I do have a good pun, though, that Tim and I were laughing. I took it off the rundown so you didn't see it, so we could surprise you with it. But we figured if there's ever a BECCA SCOTT biography, we have the name for you.
Uh-oh, okay. Well, did you already copyright it? Can
No,
I have it?
it's
can
for
have
you.
this. This
It's
is
completely for you.
Free of
So
charge.
it's based off of James Bond. It's called Die Rolls Are a Girl's Best Friend.
There you go.
genius.
Yeah.
You can have it.
I mean, it's somewhat shameful, but I do have a Marilyn Monroe tattoo, so
Oh, there you go. See?
fun fact.
And I said James
It's really
Bond.
fitting.
That's Diamonds Are Forever. I totally got that.
Well, we are a
confused.
horror podcast, not a James
I
Bond
think because
podcast.
and I did have Die Rolls Are Forever was the original title in my head, so that's why.
All right, so back to the interview, Becca. You do so many different things. What's your favorite thing to do? What's your favorite role? What's your favorite project?
All of it. That's a very good point. I mean, when you're first starting out, people always say, like, do one thing, become the best in that, and I'm very much, a Jill of all trades, but I like to stay busy, and I like every day to be different and exciting, so probably one of my favorite things to do was when over at Geek and Sundry, we were doing a role-playing game show with an all-female cast called TBD RPG, where we would rotate the game master, and that person would do a totally new role-playing game format and setting every week, and it was a real blast. That's one of my favorite things. I love to play competitive dodgeball. I love to be outside and vacation.
Yes, you have great Instagram stuff.
Hey, you know what? I try. It's for the job. You got to go to beautiful destinations and put it on the internet, because that's what having a social media profile is all about.
Yeah. Or like Tim and
no,
I
it's
just post
terrible.
horror memes, but yeah.
Hey, lean into what your thing is.
And cat pictures.
Yes, cat pictures today. So
I love it. But yeah, that's a hard question. I do really split my time between a lot of activities, because I don't know, I just like collaborating with people, and I'm always down to do what's new, and you never know what will lead to the next new thing. I mean, that's sort of how I fell into doing how to plays and game the game, is just, yeah, that sounds fun. I want to do that. Let's make it happen. And when you really allow yourself to collaborate with people, amazing things can happen when you throw everybody's ideas together. So yeah, that's the dream. And what I'm working on now is building up my own channel with different podcasts and video content, which is all not up yet. I'm building up some things so I can start releasing stuff all at once. And,
nice.
Take YouTube by storm.
There you go.
They'll never see it coming.
I think you have already, and we will surely promote the heck out of that when it comes out for officially. You just
I appreciate it.
Give us the word. Not that you probably need the promotion, but we will make sure it goes out there anyway.
We'll do our small part, yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, every little bit helps.
And just remember Tim and I, if you need like game players for like some some episode of some mega board game or something that we need to.
Yeah, well, let me know when you're in LA. We'll make it happen.
I'm like, it seems like every cool thing though is in LA, like in terms of like podcast things and YouTube shows and all that. It's so funny how it just took it actually went just like Hollywood, where everyone kind of goes out there.
Right, it's so weird because it's not that, well, I think people love the nice weather, but it's not that even that many movies are being shot here anymore. It's just sort of like, this is the mecca of where creative people go, New York as well. But, if you want to start doing the thing, you got to move to the city where everybody is. So the more people that are here, the more people who continue to move here. Snowball effect. But yeah, I moved out here for traditional acting, but found this is where all the nerds are too. So it's been a very, very good time.
Nice. I know. I'm so jealous because it seems like your whole group there is just fun. Like all the different people that that you kind of recurring through there and stuff. I end up following all of them now on Twitter and stuff. And it's just, they're always so like cool and stuff. It's like the coolest bunch of people ever. It's like,
yeah, Geek and Sundry, especially in its heyday when we had a lot of concurrent role-playing shows and different types of shows, there's just such wonderful people that were brought together, and a lot of people, great people bring their great friends on, so it was just a really positive atmosphere, and anything that was toxic, well, those people weren't really invited back, so it just led to this environment of everybody being awesome, and so now we're all doing our own little projects and stuff, but we stay in touch, so it's fun.
That's awesome. So, Becca, we've got a little game planned for the end of the interview, so we definitely want to get to that. But first, where can our listeners find you on social media and the interwebs?
Oh, that's easy. It's the same everywhere. I'm at the BECCA SCOTT, TheBeccascott, on Twitter, on Instagram, on Facebook, although Facebook doesn't get much love from me these days. Well, I'm more on Twitter. As addicting and toxic as it sometimes is, I just can't stay away.
And you have your own. You do have your. Not that this is something they can find, but you can search. You do have some fun little gifs that of you doing stuff. It's pretty funny. There's one of my favorites, the one where you're just putting the glasses on, and it says something like Catan, something about Catan, and you're like putting on the sunglasses. It's pretty funny.
Amazing. Yeah, those were made. So Asmodee is a company that is behind a lot of your favorite board game companies. They're all owned by this French company, Asmodee, which the staff there is really, really wonderful. They have offices in England as well. And 2 years ago at Essen, Spiel des Essen, which is the biggest board game convention, I think, in the world, is in Germany in October. And I got to go as part of the Asmodee crew, and we just live streamed on Twitch on their channel for 4 days straight, all day long. And so that's where a lot of those ridiculous gifts are from, is those 4 days in Essen a couple years ago. And it was such a blast. I would love to go back and do it with them. Unfortunately, I was at a Magic the Gathering tournament last year, so I couldn't go work with Asmodee again. So maybe it'll happen again in the future.
Well,
nice.
maybe we'll just keep wishing it out there for you, and then it'll have to happen.
Wiggle your magic fingers, make the good vibes, make things happen.
So I guess, as Tim mentioned, we do play this game on the podcast, and since you are the gaming legend, we need to have you take part in this, and we added a little wrinkle. Legend. So what we usually do is it's basically just one of those would you rather kind of question, they're funny questions, but what we did for you is I made 3 columns with the page numbers down the columns, and so you get to roll a 6-sided dice so we can decide which column it is, and then the 20-sided dice, which will allow me to pick the question, and then we all answer it, and kind of it's usually fun. It's kind of like a fun way to get to like that. Tim and I kind of get out there. There's been some doozies in there. There's some weird ones, some really funny ones, poignant ones. Well, Tim doesn't like the ones where it involves eating something weird, but it's still pretty fun.
It's a lot of preparation.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm ready.
Okay.
Which do I roll first, D6 or D20?
D6. And I knew what that is. See, that's
Okay.
how into it I am now.
Okay, it is 5.
Okay, so that's the column 2, and now you roll the D20, and then I will...
It's a 10.
10. Okay, this is a good one then. Okay, it says...
The dice knew.
Yeah, the dice knows all. It says, would you rather, after death, choose to live the same life over again, or risk being reborn anywhere in the world in any circumstance. So, well, should we let Becca go first, or should we give her the finale?
Yeah. No,
Okay.
no, Becca goes first.
This sounds like a whole life of Groundhog Day, which is my favorite movie, and also some may consider it a horror movie.
Yes, well, and Happy Death Day was definitely a play off of that, which was great. So.
Oh yeah. Oh, I haven't seen that one, but I watched the trailer several times. It looked great.
Yes.
And of course, Live, Die, Repeat, which is an action film with Tom Cruise and Emily Blunt. Anyway, okay. I was just avoiding the question. I guess I'd want to. Would you be born as human in option 2?
I would say yes. You'd be born.
Because if your chances are pretty good that you're human, then I'm in. If you're likely to be an insect. I mean, I feel like the odds, if insects are included, the odds are very high. It'll be an ant or something. So yeah,
I love the thought process.
I guess I want to roll my dice, so to speak, on another human life because it just sounds so boring to be on autopilot for an entire lifetime.
That's a good,
That's a good perspective. I didn't think of it that way because in my mind, I was thinking, well, I don't want to take the chance of being born into like really dire circumstances, and with the amount of people in the world, there's a good chance you could be born in a situation you didn't want to be in. But you do bring up a good point. If you actually remember the life that you had, and then have to be reborn into it, kind of experiencing everything over again. I don't know. That's a tough one. I think I'm still gonna go with reliving the life that I've had, hoping that somehow I can change things in it.
Yeah, see, it was funny. I had the same thought process as Tim, but Becca's point is great because, it's like, especially when you think back to like so many things that, your life has taken you and you're like, oh God, if only I could change this. But then you think back to like, but then would you not have your family? Would you not have your spouse? Would you not have some experiences that really you loved? But it's hard. And I think I'm going to go with the first one just because I'm like one of those like little sentimental sappy people in deep down where it's like, I'm like, I can't imagine not living without like my, not knowing my family and, my friends and my wife and, all those things that like, that I think of good things. That's like, I mean, of course the odds are you could still get that, but no guarantee. So it's like, it's tricky because it's one of those situations where you wouldn't know what you're missing in the second one anyway.
Exactly. That was the point I was going to make. I just didn't, I wanted to see what you guys had to say. But if you have never known, living an affluent life in the U.S. and, all the privilege or things that you're born into, you have a different standard of what makes you happy and what family is and what everything is. So I think it would be just fine to be born as just about any time and place. And, there's always things that give people joy, no matter what your circumstances are.
That's true.
Wow, that was a very philosophical Zamondo.
Aren't they all like that?
No. I'm telling you, some are really
usually it's like, would you eat an eyeball or a tumor?
Yeah,
There's an eyeball?
There are some horrible ones in here that like make you want to like cringe, and there's like no good answer. But I will say what was really funny is, so the thing about this book is at the bottom they give like a little factoid. And funny, exactly what you said. It said, surprise. It said, we're not going to do the obvious video recommendation of Groundhog Day with Bill Murray. But they said, try the movie 1201 with Jonathan Silverman, which according to this book is the best work since Weekend at Bernie's. So I never heard of that movie, but I have to check it out.
All right. I'm going to have to take this writer's recommendation with a grain of salt because Weekend at Bernie's, really?
Yeah, well, it's his best work since is what they said. So yeah, depending on how you feel a Weekend at Bernie's, I don't know if that's selling you on it. But you know what? While we were talking about that, it gave me a great idea. How great would there be to be some sort of board game version of Groundhog Day? There's got to be a way to work that game.
Shh. I'm working on it.
Okay.
No,
good.
I'm not. But now I want to.
You should.
That's brilliant. It's my favorite movie. It's so good.
Oh my God. Then you have to see Happy Death Day, by the way.
Brian, I've already lived that board game. It's playing Robinson Crusoe over and over again and losing every time.
Oh, really?
Since it would be remiss to not mention Russian Doll, the Netflix show with Natasha Lyonne, when we're talking about things that were inspired by Groundhog Day.
Yeah, that's a great
I
show.
haven't seen
That's a
that,
great
but I
show.
heard it's really good.
Yeah. All right, Becca.
Well, cool.
Well, we will let you get out of here, but thank you so much for being on the show. Like we said, we're huge fans, and it was just a delight to talk to you in person.
Well, now I'm fans of you guys. Tim, Brian, thank you so much for having me.
Oh my God, it was our pleasure. Thank you so much. It really, really meant a lot that you found the time in your busy schedule, and we're looking forward to all your new projects coming up too.
I appreciate you guys. Take care.
All right, Brian. So that was just a lot of fun. I think we could have talked to her all night.
Oh my God. Yeah, and we usually have this kind of like set form that we do when we do the interviews, where it has like, a list of our questions, and now we don't always go verbatim on it, but we usually stick pretty close to it. But but I had a feeling, because she's exactly like she is, the way you see her in her projects, where she's just super energetic and fun, and it was just like I had a feeling that the conversation was just going to go whichever way it chose to, and it was so much fun. I mean, that was like, it truly was a highlight of our podcast, because but I mean, Tim's been a fan a lot longer. I'm just kind of new to it all, but it's once you see her projects, it's easy to it's her just enthusiasm is very infectious, and it just draws you in right away. So we were super psyched that we were able to get her on. She took the time, because if you hear her schedule, it is amazing. She found some time to come on and talk to two knuckleheads like us.
And she knows her stuff.
Yeah.
Found out
my
during
God.
the interview.
She does. I was like, it basically sounded like, I mean, those who are not in our coaster community basically sounded like when our group gets together and starts talking about coaster stats, she was rattling them off about games, and it just blew me away. It was so impressive.
Yeah. So that was fun, guys. Not so fun, maybe, is our feature film.
Yeah.
That's terrible. That was a terrible segue.
Yeah, and I feel bad because we kind of themed it towards this episode, because we had BECCA SCOTT on, so we wanted to get a movie that had a sort of a game theme to it. And of course, we were trying to find a game that was, that was also horror based. And there was that one, Dead Bodies, that Tim and I had both seen already. So we didn't want to use that one.
And then I had suggested Mazes and Monsters, which is the old Tom Hanks movie, but it's not really horror. It's more of a drama. So it was going to be quite a stretch to try to fit that in. So, it was. So Brian came up with this one, and I will say he could have picked something worse. I mean, there definitely, it was not terrible, but it was pretty consistent with the typical horror movie coming out from the early 2000s. This one came out in 2009. We're talking about Open Graves, and this is an Eliza Dushku. How do you pronounce her name, Brian?
I think it's Dushku. I used to say Duke Shoe. For some reason, I had it backwards. I made her sound like a really weird clog or something. But
yeah, and I always get her confused with Count Dooku from Star Wars. So,
oh, what a mashup costume that would be, Eliza Dushku. Can you imagine that? She's in a cheerleader costume, but has his lightsaber and cape.
Oh my gosh, that would be perfect.
Oh my God. Okay, anyone out there brave enough to attempt that, we will send a Civil Gore shower curtain as a present. But you have to send a picture.
Oh. I should know how to pronounce her name, because I was a fan of her in Buffy ever since the Buffy days, and then she was in that show the Dollhouse.
Oh yeah,
you remember that one?
That's right. Yeah,
yeah, I really liked that show. She was a lead in that one, and so I really liked her. And then it's also got Mike Vogel, who is you would recognize from Under the Dome.
Yep, and he was in a lot of stuff. Mike Vogel, wasn't he? He was in Cloverfield too, wasn't he?
Yeah, I think so. And I do have a quick story about Mike Vogel. A coworker ran into him at a barbecue buffet.
Oh my God!
Places in town, because he was in town filming Under the Dome.
Oh yeah.
And he said that he didn't really want to bother him, because he was there with Mike Vogel was there with his family and everything, but he couldn't resist, and so he just went by him and said, "Hey Mike, I'm a big fan," or whatever. And he said the guy was so super nice. He got up, took a picture, shook his hand. I mean, even took time away from his family eating to interact with my coworker. So I thought that was pretty
yeah. Cool. And he looked. I mean, I know that. I mean, it's like, obviously you could say this about a lot of people, and then they turn out not to be that way. But he just looks like a nice dude. I don't know why. I just always got that vibe, and all the stuff he's been in. I'm just like, you know what? kind of looks like he'd be a nice guy. And like he was in what was the comedy he was in? She's Out of My League. Remember that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And like in that, he was like kind of like, he's kind of funny in it. And I think I always kind of liked him in that and thought he was pretty funny. And so I'm like, I don't know. He just seems like he'd be a really nice dude. I don't know. But I'm glad to hear that my suspicions were correct.
Yeah, anecdotally, he is. So
Yeah.
that's pretty cool.
That's
This
awesome.
was directed by, let me butcher this name, please.
Yeah.
Director Alvaro de Amagnan. Ooh, even got the little swirly area.
Yeah, you got that in. And I had to get that in, I had to copy and paste because I didn't know how to type that in.
It stars Mike Vogel as Jason, Eliza Dushku as Erica, Iman Nazimzadeh.
I knew you were going to I purposely picked this movie for these
Oh
reasons.
my god.
No,
As
I'm
Tomas, Naiki Ravelli as Elena, Lindsay Carolyn Raba as Lisa, Gary Peeker as Detective Izar, I don't know. I've given up. Alex Doherty as Malek and Boris Martinez as Pablo. A group of surfers discover an old board game which claims a life every time it is played. So, Brian, this I could not help but think of was the perfect mashup between Jumanji and Final Destination.
It really
exactly
was.
what this movie is. I mean, if you wanted to sum this movie up in one line, that's it right there.
Yes. And in fact, it was like, it's so funny because the board game itself was very Jumanji-like in the way it was in this like fancy, I mean, this was like a chest. I mean, not just a box, but it was like almost like this giant chest, like a treasure chest. But, and of course the original Jumanji game had this big elaborate kind of this fancy box to it like that. And the pieces even remind me of it and how it would like had this really elaborate, like almost reminded me a little of the Dark Tower, with a big centerpiece where you have it's basically a dice tower that would roll in, which actually towards the end you find out what that tower is really for, but kind of looked like a dice tower, and it had a lot of but it played like a game that would be kind of fun to play without all the death and bad juju, I guess, involved in it. But yeah. So, but Tim's right though, because at first when I saw it, I was like, I mean, obviously the Jumanji reference like stares right out as soon as you see the game. But then as I started watching, the movie goes along, I'm like, oh my god, this is literally Final Destination.
Yes.
But just if you played a Final Destination board game, this is what you'd get, because it's basically there's like each like when the character picks a card, it's if you land in a certain space, you have to pick a card. If you don't, you're safe. But the cards are almost every one of them like is some sort of death.
Here's the problem I have with this game as a gamer. So I will teach you a term, Brian, so that you can impress your board game friends,
which is you and Cone. Just so you know. Oh, now BECCA Scott, of course, is our friend.
So there's the concept of player agency. And
didn't she say that in there? She said that in the interview.
She might have, but in the concept of player agency is that the player has meaningful decisions to make and can affect the outcome of the game. So some games have a very low level of player agency, and that would be like Candyland. You literally can do nothing. I mean, you literally are picking a card and going to the color on the card. That's basically zero player agency. You have literally no control over what you're doing.
Actually, that's not 100% true. When I play Candyland, if I land on those desserts, I pretend I'm eating them. I'm just kidding.
But there's literally no strategy. And then there's some games that have very high player agency in which like you might have 20 different things you can do, all of which is going to predict a particular outcome in the game.
I see. Okay.
And so Open Graves, my first thought when seeing them play this game was, God, this game has no player agency, because you're literally rolling the die, moving to a space, and then drawing a card and doing what it says, or just reading the card. But in this case, you don't even do what it says, you just read the card. So this was a very low player agency game, which means I would not be a fan, especially not the things that happen to you after you read a card, which we'll get to. But that was kind of funny. It was kind of funny watching it from a gamer's perspective and going, ugh. That's why when you become a board game snob, Brian, which you will be soon. Oh no, I'm grooming you to that.
But I'm already a beer snob. I'm a Blu-ray snob. I mean, what? I'm going to become just a flat out snob soon enough.
Because a board game or true board game snob looks down their nose on things like Monopoly and any game where you're rolling dice to move is a big no-no. No-no. Yeah. So you can't.
Well, but you can't. Oh yeah, you're right. Because and you're right. Horrified, you roll the dice at all. There's no. Well, there's not even a die in it. What am I saying?
There's die for the combat, but that's it.
Yeah, the combat, but there's not there's not a movement die. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
So you just kind of move on your own based off the cards.
Monopoly is the Bud Light of gaming, basically. So, hate to say it.
Oh, but I did see something actually. If you want to, I know it's my religion, but there's a Passover version of Trouble I saw, and I know Anna's a big fan of Troubles. If you want to get her a little bit more religious culture from another religion, there's a thing. It's called "Let My People Go," but it's the Passover version of Trouble.
Oh my gosh!
Yes.
I actually do love Trouble. For a kids game, it's probably my favorite kids game. Me and Olivia, when we were dating, and now granted, keep in mind we were dating in our 20s. And we used to have like long, drawn out Trouble tournaments on date night.
Oh my god!
That's how nerdy we are, and how much I love Trouble.
Yeah, but Trouble's if you think about it, it's such a simple premise that's so fun and actually can get really exciting because it has that race element to it. It reminds me of it's the board game version of that game. Do you remember? Did you play this in your school? We always did. I was always one of the best at that. They always put me last because I was so fast. Was Overtake? Do you remember that?
No, I've never played that.
So picture this they would tape out this big square, and you'd have two teams lined up across from each other, and facing opposite ways. And they basically said, you'd have to, the guy the gym teacher would say go, and the lead person would have to run around, and they'd have a baton, and the whole object would be you would have to overtake the other person, which is always going to be like a square and a half ahead of you. So and you'd have to keep passing the baton in as you'd come around, and if you dropped it, you're going to pick it up. So that's where you could either gain distance between the people or lose it based on how you were. So you'd always want to put the fast person in the front and the end because the whole object, remember, so you could win by either overtaking the other team or if you finished your entire roster of runners.
Oh, that sounds cool.
Actually. So this always Trouble reminded me of a board game version of that. Except, because you can kind of get across people. I mean, it's not the exact thing, but it kind of has that excitement of when you pass someone. I remember when we were over there last and I was playing with Anna and Joshua, I could not get out of the space. So literally it got to the point where I think I managed to get one piece all the way around and in there. But it was kind of funny and I felt so bad because one time Joshua was, as you know, your kids were very competitive with each other in that game. And it was kind of funny because I had no other choice, but I guess I had to send Josh back because I plop. I guess when you land on somebody, they have to go back.
Yeah, you land on somebody, they go back to base.
Yeah, and I accidentally landed on him. I felt bad, but...
Oh, no, I'm cutthroat with the kids. I'll land on them. I'll take them out in a heartbeat. What me and Olivia used to do is, since we were two players, we would play two colors.
Oh,
and that was your team. So, if you were red and yellow was all one team. So you had 8 players to get home. But that also means you had 8 players to kill other players. And that means you got out faster because you had 8 tokens out on the board or whatever. So I don't know. We got into some crazy variations of Trouble. I could probably talk way too long about Trouble.
So should I buy this and send this to you, Tim? The Let My People Go version of Trouble.
That's pretty crazy. I did find out for Olivia's birthday one year. I got her Double Trouble, which was a rare. I don't know if it's rare, but it's a vintage version of Trouble that played very differently. It didn't have the plastic container for the pegs. It was just a traditional game board, but it had 2 Pop-O-Matics in it, one on each side. And I found an old copy on eBay that I bought her one year for her birthday just for fun.
That's awesome.
So I still have it. It's pretty cool.
Maybe you should make Trouble the movie, a horror movie version of Trouble somehow.
Yeah. Here comes Trouble.
Yeah. This game is hilarious because literally it has the Passover is a very odd holiday to produce like paraphernalia for, because you have this, like, because I was looking for my niece and nephew, and I know we're a little off topic here, but so it's kind of, so I was looking up to get, because one year I got my niece before my nephew was born. I got her like a little, like, this, I don't know if you know of a Seder, Tim, what they have. They have a Seder plate with different objects on it that are ceremonial and represent different things. And so I had got her a little stuffed Seder plate, so they probably still have that. But I was trying to look for some other stuff, because I don't get to see him as much now that they're in LA, and I wanted to make sure I sent them a little gift, so I was looking up some stuff. That's how I discovered the Let My People Go trouble. But they have, one of the things was, of course, if you know the story of Passover, the 10 plagues that was cast upon Egypt by God, and so the funny thing was, I don't know how Civil Gore became the Civil Lore podcast, but anyway, so they, so basically, so I'm looking through this thing, and there's a sequence in the Seder where you dip your finger in the wine and you dip it on your plate, and it's red wine, so it looks like blood, and you're supposed to do like boils, this, that. So anyway, they literally have, one of the things I found was the Passover 10 plagues finger puppets, which represents each of the plagues. Jeez. And I'm just like, that's so bizarre of a promotion for that. I mean, it's plagues. Like, people were dying from it. But I thought, if you thought that was bad enough, okay, this is called the House of Rosh makes this thing, and it's called... It's basically a bag of stuffed plagues, and it's called the adorable set of 10 plush Passover plague representations with a convenient carrying drawstring bag.
Oh my god! So
yeah, that's what it is. So literally, you got like one of the things in there was a dead cow. I mean, well, it's a cow, but there's the famine was. I mean, it's hilarious that they actually managed to find a kid's toy, really, apparently in anything. But
wow.
There's this Jewish edition of the game Sequence. I don't know what board game that is, but yeah, so that's
interesting.
Yeah, so sorry. And they also have the Passover 10 Plagues of Egypt photo booth prop masks. So Passover's getting a lot of good swag for it, apparently, this year.
Yeah, that's a hot IP.
But yeah, really. You don't want to pass over those deals. Okay. Sorry, let's get back to actually what we should be talking about.
Yeah, so the movie opens, and there will be spoilers, and we don't care for this movie. Because
really, we're saving you.
You were saving you the trouble. So we start off in a medieval era. There is some gruesome scenes of torture. There's a witch named Mamba who is tortured and skinned alive, and these are what we learn are used to craft this game, which is called Mamba.
Yes.
And we learn through the course of the movie what the point of this game is, which we'll get to a little bit later. But then we cut to the present day and a very long surfing montage, which this movie has a lot of surfing montages because they were obviously trying to pad to fill time.
Yeah, and it was like a pretty short movie. So.
Yes, it was funny. I was like, after like the second or third surfing montage, I looked at the running time and I was like, wait a minute. They're trying to pad time here. Yeah. And there's some pretty cheesy early 2000s soundtrack here too. But yeah, a group of friends get together and they, one of the guys, Jason, who is the character played by Mike Vogel, goes into this shop and purchases this acquires, I should say, this board game from the shop owner. And they go back to party and wind up playing this game together. And like Brian and I were talking about, it's basically you roll the dice, and it's a creepy looking game. Don't get me wrong; it's a weird carved, like demonic looking figures in it.
It's like two snakes are kind of like crossing each other at the top, right? I guess.
Yeah, there's like a centerpiece thing, and then there's the dice are like these etched wooden dice. Actually, if you bought that game today, it would probably cost you $80 for the quality of the components.
Oh, but, easily, if not like higher than that. That's like be one of those like ones where you'd get like probably like a limited edition at like Gen Con or something.
Yeah, special Grim Reaper promo card.
Yeah,
and yeah, so they play this game and they're kind of joking around. I mean, this movie is so typical of these. You know this movie.
Yeah, you've seen it. I mean, in fact, I put that in the discussion points. It's like,
oh my god,
the familiar plot you've seen. It's either in this, it's a game. In other movies, it's a book or a scripture or a video or something that like basically that people just stumble upon And no matter how weird and creepy it looks, they just go through whatever it is, and then one by one, things start to happen to each of them. And the two final people figure out there's only one way to save us all.
And it's the same characters, and it's the guy and the
is.
hot girl that's coming on to him at the part. I mean, oh my gosh, yeah. So anyway, they start playing this game. Well, as players go around the board and land on certain spaces, some are called, I can't remember what they call it,
Heaven's Gate or something.
Heaven's Gate or something. Those were the safe
It's really
spots.
not important to remember that.
No. But then other spaces where you'd land on were called open graves, and that's where you would draw a card and you would read this poem, which was kind of cheesy for medieval writing.
They said quatrain. I'm like, Ghostradamus, anyone?
Yeah. And these things have some like weird cryptic sayings on them, which we later come to find out predicts how the loser is going to die. Because if you're eliminated from the game, you will eventually be eliminated in real life.
Yes.
In the manner of what the card said.
In some, not
in
exact, because it was one of those like, it was in like quatrain, where it was like a Nostradamus thing, where it's like the way you interpret it.
That's why it felt so Final Destination-y, because you didn't quite know how they were going to die, but you knew it was going to be related.
Yeah, like it was like the first guy was like by the seas of something, or it was weird.
Yeah, like in Final Destination, they would always show some like red herring way he was gonna die, and then he would actually die in a different way that you didn't see coming. But then in the hindsight, you kind of did. So that's kind of how it was.
If only we saw this movie coming, but no, that's terrible.
So Pablo, I believe, is the first guy that gets eliminated.
Yeah,
and so
how harsh is that? He's going on the beer run.
Yeah, he was going for the beer run, and don't ever do this, guys. He stops to urinate over the edge of a cliff.
Yeah.
If you're going to do that, well, I mean, I guess there's worse places you could go do your business, but
true. But I don't know why he stopped at the one spot that has the small fence.
Yeah. So he falls over the edge of the cliff, and this is where I didn't see this part coming, and this is where I found out this movie has one redeeming quality. So Pablo falls off the cliff and actually survives.
Yeah.
Only to be eaten by crabs. And this brings up a scene where I instantly knew Brian was going to be completely revolted.
Yeah, I was cringing. I don't cringe much at horror movies. I said that there are the two things that cringe me out: when there's fingers breaking the wrong way, or actually any kind of body part that breaks the wrong direction it should, and eyeball things.
Yeah, and so a crab does eat his eyeball. And I will say, the gore in this movie is really good.
Yeah, it's well done. Actually, that's the one thing I have to... Yeah, it's like funny. It's like there's a couple of production issues like throughout the movie. Like I did notice there's a lot of times where there's overdubbing dialogue, especially there was at least 3 with Eliza Dushku where she's talking and you could clearly see her mouth is not moving. But I think it's because they could not. There was a lot of scenes. There was a scene in the lighthouse where it would have probably been really expensive to have the proper audio equipment to capture what they were saying.
Yeah.
So it was like, and she literally said a line and her mouth was like almost sewed shut. And I'm like,
she's a ventriloquist.
Yeah, apparently, amongst her other talents. But so. But I say they definitely spent the budget on the gore because there was really, I will say, yes, that was a highlight. I mean, in a podcast called Civil Gore, we need to give credit where credit is due on that.
Yeah. So the friends do figure this out fairly quickly when they learn of Pablo's death. They do correlate it to the game rather quickly, which I was fairly impressed with, that they picked up on it right away. And then comes the second death, which I thought was actually pretty cool despite the CGI snakes.
Yeah.
So Miguel goes out to a wood cutting factory, I guess because they had to have a cool scenic place to do this.
Yeah.
But he gets attacked by, I guess they're black mambas, maybe. I guess.
All of a sudden they come out of nowhere and there's like 700 of them.
And they're really bad CGI. And there's a point I was laughing because the CGI snake drops and he like bounces like 2 inches off the ground, and I thought that was kind of funny because I didn't know real snakes bounced, but apparently CGI ones do, and they chase him again. Another kind of you expect the familiar, maybe the snake just bites him or something, but instead there's like this kind of protracted scene where he's like climbing up the logs trying to get away from the swarm of snakes below, and then one jumps out of the log and hits him.
They do a good job, I guess, giving you enough of a surprise. But
Yeah.
you know, I mean,
The death sequences are actually fairly entertaining.
yeah. There's one that's really drawn out with the blonde girl. Hers is really drawn out over like about 15 minutes of screen time, isn't it? I mean, she first turns really old.
Yeah, there comes one of the weirdest deaths. Is one of the girls turns into an elderly woman, and this is where I had a real problem with this movie because I'm not used to seeing elderly boobs.
Yeah, there were elder boobs,
And there was a lot of elder boob in this movie. Well, not a lot, but this sequence they tended to focus a lot on the elder boob, and I wasn't. And they were obviously fake.
yeah.
It was a prosthetic, but still, and even fake elder boob is a little perturbing to me.
Yeah, and we're not trying to be ageist in any ways. It's just there's,
Yeah. I mean, there's boob and then there's elder boob, and this was not the kind of elder boob you wanted to see.
Yeah, this one is like T and A, but it's T spelled TEA, like like a person.
Yeah.
But so it was a very odd like sequence. I think it's very. I don't remember what her card was because like what it said, but I don't think it said you were going to be turned old and then flash all your friends with elder boob. But I don't know what.
And then your chest was going to cave in when the doctor tried to save you.
I was like, I don't remember what her card was, but it almost got me to go back and look at it, but I'm like, I don't really have the time,
yeah, it was just kind of, yeah. Let's see, what else did we have? So now that at this point they're really like they know something's going on. They know their mark. It's just like the Final Destination movies. They know something's going on. They have to.
Oh, and the other girl got in a big car accident, right? I guess.
Yeah, she got burned to death. And the funny part about this one was she swerves to avoid a big truck, and when she swerves, her car flips over.
Yeah, inexplicably just decides to flip over.
I was like, there's no way. There's no way a car could just spontaneously flip over. Because you jerked the wheel. It was the fakest looking thing. It was hilarious. I loved it. But that's part of the charm of this movie is picking that kind of stuff out.
Yeah.
But she burns to death horribly in her car, which we're laughing about. And then now we get to the kind of ending third act of the movie. And so the only ones left at this point, I guess, are Jason and Erica, because Tomas gets shot by the detective.
Yeah, because and that's the thing. So apparently, I guess we left out the one subplot that kind of explains this game itself. So where Jason gets the game was from this guy that in the beginning has no legs. But so apparently when you win the game, you get one wish to do it. And so when they encounter this guy again, he's got two full legs. And so they basically, at that point, they kind of figure out there's something with this game. And the detective, I guess, gets wind of that. And he's trying to get hold of this game now because he wants to bring his wife and daughter back, I guess, who were tragically killed, prior to the events of the movie. Yeah.
So at this point, Jason and Erica are the only ones left. That's Mike Vogel and Eliza Dushku. And they decide the only way they can stop the curse is they have to play the game. So they sit down to play the game, and Erica gets eliminated. And her death, she draws the C card. Her death will involve the C. And then they realize the curse can't truly be broken unless she dies and he truly wins.
Right.
And then he can get his wish. And the plan is, if he gets his wish, he'll wish time back a week so that all their friends are alive, which I thought was actually pretty clever. I wouldn't have maybe necessarily thought of that.
Yeah, I would have worded it differently, though, as we'll get to, I guess.
Yeah, so this is kind of a weird sequence. So Erica she goes into the sea to basically drown herself and fulfill the curse. No, believing, of course, that he will do the wish and she'll be back alive again eventually.
And we forgot though the one cool sequence is this whole game this play. So he wins the game, remember? But then there's one final thing where he's got to pick the right. He's got to drop the dice in one of the two snakes, or the piece into one of the two snake mouths. But he's got to get the right one, because the wrong one, it will get caught in the game and never come out, and the correct one will roll out the bottom.
Yes,
which I thought was kind of a cool little element to it, like, to make this game really hard.
So if they make Open Graves the board game, they'll have to build that mechanic into the
Yeah, well, see,
central
there's a
tower.
little bit of agency, I guess, on that part. He's got to pick. Which,
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, but anyway, so
that me use the term correctly.
So Erica goes into the sea and reemerges as Mamba the Witch, which again was very CGI filled, but it was kind of cool. I actually kind of liked her character. It's sort of like a sea witch thing coming out of the ocean. And so Jason gets his wish and sets things back, and then all of a sudden we're back to a week before, to the start of the movie, where everything's reset and we think everything's good, but now we realize they're just reliving the same week over and over and over again.
Right.
Which is the big Twilight Zone twist.
Yeah, and see, that's where I would have said, why did he have to ask for it that way? Why didn't he just say, my wish is to go back, or to get everyone back, the way it was at that current time? Or if you want to go back that week, just say, to pick it like a, I don't know, like wish, but incorporate that you wouldn't find the game in the wish or something,
Yeah,
or something.
like put some conditions on it, at least.
Yeah, I mean, because because right when he said that, I'm like, but then he's going to go encounter the game. That's what I'm saying. This movie's very predictable because we've seen it all before. Yeah. So I'm kind of like, he's just going to end up encountering it again. He's not going to remember anything from this.
Yeah, I will say, if there are worse movies you could spend your time with, it's actually not terrible. It's actually fairly entertaining.
Yeah, that was the thing. It was entertaining through it. Like, I didn't find myself like trying to rush it through.
I wasn't bored. I mean, even though it was predictable,
right,
and we've seen all this stuff before, I wasn't bored. And it has that's some pretty decent actors in it. Mike Vogel. And
I mean,
Eliza
I think
Dushku.
that helped. I definitely think that helped. That it was some people you knew.
Yeah.
So at least you could get invested in it for at least that.
And the death scenes were actually genuinely good. I'm not just saying that. The gore in here is actually very, very well done. So if you are a big gore head and you like good kills, you could definitely do worse than this one. So yeah, a cautious. I wouldn't. I mean, I can't necessarily recommend it, but I could say there are definitely worse things out there, and I give it a slight recommendation for the gore factor.
Yeah, and the fact that it's on Prime and you can stream it with your Prime membership without having any additional costs to you. It's you got about an hour and a half looking to watch something. I mean, I dare say fun. Just give it a whirl.
It's okay. Yeah. Not much trivia for this one. It was filmed in Spain, but has never been released in Spain.
Yeah.
And we had to hear that Brandon Routh turned down the role of Jason.
I don't know. I can't see him in this.
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe.
I don't know. Because I think if I saw it, all I think of is Superman Returns.
Yeah, poor guy. He's pretty much typecast.
And I thought he did that movie does not get the credit it deserves for he really channeled Christopher Reeve in that movie, and I thought he did a great job.
Superman Returns. I thought it was a great movie. I just did not get the hate for that movie.
I don't either. I mean, I remember I loved it when I saw it. I mean, you got Kevin Spacey as Lex Luthor. I mean, you got Kate Bosworth as Lois Lane, who did a good job. Of course, Margot Kidder will always be our Lois Lane, but Kate Bosworth did a formidable job at that. Superman 2 is my favorite out of all the movies, and one of my favorite movies of all time. And the fact that this was kind of like a direct sequel to that.
Yeah, I thought it was awesome. And it's got Parker Posey.
Yes, and of course, which I was hoping she'd play like a Miss Tessbacher, but she didn't. But she was good.
But yeah, it was. I don't know how we got on Superman Returns.
Brandon Routh.
Okay, but
or Ralph. I don't know.
Or Ralph, or I don't know.
Is it Ruth, Ralph? I don't know.
You say Ruth, I say Ralph. Let's call the whole thing off.
Yeah.
All right, so Brian, what is our beer pairing this week?
So the beer pairing for this is, I could not find, believe it or not, something themed to Graves the way I wanted to, but I did find a great beer name based on and unfortunately you have to watch this movie to really get this, but we did mention it, so you'll be okay. The beer is Mamba by Gilgamesh Brewing Company. It's 6.5%, and it's a unique malt beverage defined by black tea, bergamot, tangerine peel, and rye. It says Mamba is light flavored and smooth bodied with a taste that can only speak for itself. Just like this movie can only speak for itself. Except it would be all dubbed. That's
and
all.
it's fairly light as well. So
yes.
that's
so
pretty good beer pairing. All right, so let's get to our triple threat. Last week, I don't know, Brian, did we get any guesses on this one? I think this one maybe have been deceptively hard. I think we were...
Yeah, I didn't, unless people just ignored it. But then again, remember, the episode released late. So when we're recording this, it just released. So we probably didn't get as many yet. We might get some later in the week. That's one different advantage to... that when we think about it, but usually when we record, the episode will have released the same day. So the guesses, we may not know the guesses until later in the week.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, you're right. So we were looking for a fictional character, and clue number one was I was played by two different actors. Well, the answer was Pennywise. Pennywise was, of course, originally played by Tim Curry in the TV miniseries, and then by Bill Skarsgård in the 2 theatrical films. Clue number two, I am only one version, albeit the most common version, of my character. So, of course, Pennywise was only the most common version of the being It, as It was known in the books and the films. He was a shapeshifter, so I say he. Yeah. It could have been a she. I don't know.
Yeah, but I mean, I think that that we want these to be challenging at some level. So this was a good clue, I think. And
then clue number three, I'm featured in 3 films and a novel and indirectly referenced in another novel. Well, Pennywise, of course, was featured in the TV movie It and the 2 theatrical films, Chapter 1 and Chapter 2. There's a tangential appearance of Pennywise in King's 2011 novel 11/22/63, where a time-traveling Jake meets a couple of the children from It and asks them about a recent murder in their town. That's a fantastic novel, by the way, one of my favorites.
Yeah, I want to read that one.
Apparently the murderer wasn't the clown. It also appears to be to the protagonist, Jake Epping, in the old Ironworks, where it taunts Jake about the rabbit hole, referring to the time portal. And this is just one of the things I love about Stephen King, all the little Easter eggs he puts in. There's a book that came out a while ago, and I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head, but it actually, I've always wanted to get it. I may just go ahead and order it, but it shows all the tie-ins between Stephen King's novels.
Oh, cool.
So it references, like, here's where the Dark Tower references this book, and this is where It comes into play in this, and Cujo was referenced here and here and here. Really, really fascinating. I mean, if you're a King fan, you'll recognize these as you're reading them, but of course I've been reading Stephen King since I was a kid, and I haven't reread most of his books, so it's hard to really remember. And he ties things back from years and years ago, so it's really hard to keep track of unless you have another source to go by. The triple threat for this week, we are looking for an actor or actress. And this is a good one.
So this one may be a little tricky just because the person in question has done horror, but they're not really known for horror.
Yeah, this is a really interesting one. I really like this one. So listen up. Actor or actress. Clue number one. In my first role, I played a character who was not magical, but shares the name of someone who is. Clue number two, my most well-known role is also the main character of a very popular book series. And clue number three, I became the youngest non-royal to have an individual portrait displayed in London's prestigious National Portrait Gallery.
And believe it or not, that may be the clue that helps you the most.
Yeah, I mean, this one's definitely gettable. I just think it's an interesting one because it's like you said, it's a person really not known for horror, but I thought it was just an interesting
I think
clues.
It's gettable. I'd say it's maybe a 7 and 8 just because of that obscurity part.
Yeah. All right, guys. So we will see you back here next week. I hope you enjoyed that episode. Thanks again to BECCA SCOTT for taking the time out to come on the show. It was a delight.
Yeah, she's if you didn't know her, and I'm sure you know, we're gonna look her up after hearing that interview because it was fantastic. And I have to say, I still have a big smile on my face because that was definitely an honor to get to interview such a legendary personality out there on YouTube and Twitch and in movies. She's done some movies and stuff, so it was really cool to get to talk to her.
All right, Brian, do you have any idea what we're doing next week?
I did not pick yet next week's because I had an idea, but then I realized just with the timing of stuff going on, because I have a busier week, this is a movie I wanted to do, Dr. Sleep, but I think we might push Dr. Sleep back a little bit because this week I have we had this show tonight. I have something tomorrow. Then Wednesday I have Joe Bob. So it's like, I'm like, you know what? I want to watch both versions of Dr. Sleep when we do it so I can compare. So we might push that for next week. So I haven't yet thought of what it'll be. Maybe we'll do like a poll to give a couple of choices out there for people. But
yeah, so guys, a surprise next week. We don't know what we're doing, but maybe we'll throw something out there on social media or something. So we'll.
Yeah, so by the time you're hearing this, it'll already have been picked.
Yeah, so hopefully you saw the thing that we posted on social media asking you what to do.
Yeah.
Oh, this time travel is weird, Brian.
Yeah, I know. Gosh. This is like those old Coaster Radio, their time travel episodes they used to call it.
All right, guys, take care and stay away from board games from pawn shops.
And don't go pee by the side of a cliff.